go. So this will be another not too bad section. This one is going to be on multiplying polynomials. And you might remember from high school class FOIL, I also see this sometimes where they set up a little grid and then people do the FOIL that way. Those are both perfectly fine ways to do this. For FOIL, it just means we're going to multiply the first is the mnemonic for this, and then we're going to multiply the outer terms, and then we multiply the inner terms and the last terms. The thing that I don't love about FOIL or that is it doesn't extend to when the problems get bigger. It's great when we have two things times two things, but when we have two things times three things or three things times three things down here, that's where FOIL kind of falls apart. So that is where I kind of like the idea that if you're multiplying, what you're really doing is whatever is in this first spot here times everything in the next set of parentheses, and then you're multiplying whatever's in the second spot times everything in the parentheses. So essentially it's a times the x plus y, and then b times the x plus y. And then that way if there was a c there, it would just be c times the x plus y. And I'll show that on those more complicated examples here in a second. Also remember from the first section in this chapter that when we're multiplying, that means we are adding exponents. And so if we're doing x squared times x squared, that means we have x to the fourth, and that we multiply our coefficients. So the numbers go together and the letters go together in this. And then the only other thing on this is if we end up with any like terms, and we will for a bunch of them, to be fully simplified, that means we would have to collect those like terms. So with that, let's see how these go. This first one is just a straight distribute, so we're just going to run that 5x squared through those parentheses, and then that's going to pretty much be it for that one. So 5 times 4, we multiply our coefficients, and that gets us 20. X squared times x squared, so that means we have x to the fourth because we got 1, 2, 3, 4 x's all together. 5 times 2, that'll give us a 10 right there. And x squared times x, so that's 2 x's and a third one there, so x cubed, again, just adding the exponents, and then times the negative 1 means we just get what we had back, but with a negative sign. And that's it. For this one, this would be more like the FOIL, and again, you can set this up with the box, but I think the box has maybe some problems when we get to the more complicated ones. So I'll treat it as a FOIL, essentially. So I'm going to go 2x times both of those. Actually, I'll treat it kind of like this, and I'll go 1 times both of those. So 2x times 3x would give us 6x squared. 2x times negative 5 would give us a negative 10x. 1 times 3x would just give us 3x. And these are called the cross terms, and often, at least with the regular FOIL, when we're doing two linear things, we got to be careful to combine those on our next step. And then 1 times negative 5 gets us a negative 5 on the end. And so those right there are like terms. So we'll end up with 6x squared minus 7x, because we're down 10, and up 3 would leave us minus 7, and then that minus 5 right there on the end. This next one is pretty much the exact same thing with slightly harder signs, but we'll see how that goes in a second. So 4y times negative x would be negative x, so, sorry, 4y times negative y will be negative 4y squared. 4y times negative 4 will give us a minus 16y. 1 times negative y, we'll just call that negative y. And 1 times negative 4 will be a negative 4. I got a couple of like terms there, so we'll put that together. 4y squared minus 16 minus another 1, invisible 1 in front of that y, so that'll be minus 17y and minus 4. So for this one, there's a couple of ways to do it. You could distribute the 4x through those parentheses and then FOIL. I don't love that, and when we go to learn factoring here in another couple of chapters, I prefer to do this kind of in the reverse order that we'll do it when factoring. So let's FOIL first and kind of make it look like this one up here, and then we'll distribute that the factor out front and get that multiplied in. So for right now, I'm just going to leave a 4x out front, set myself up some parentheses, and we'll treat these two just like that 4x isn't even there. We'll just do it the same way we did this. So 2x times x will be a 2x squared. 2x times negative 2 for negative 4x. 5 times x is pretty much 5x. And then a minus 10 on the end. And again, before I start distributing stuff and making it bigger, I like to simplify as much as I can. So let's make this 2x squared. Minus 4 plus 5 is going to leave us a plus x in the middle, and minus 10. And like I said, when we go to do factoring in a second, well, in another couple weeks, not maybe a second, the first thing we would do is factor out this 4x, and we would be looking at this piece, trying to figure out how to get it to go to here. So that's a pretty good reason to kind of do things in this order. And then let's just distribute the 4x through and we'll be done. So 8x cubed, 4 times invisible 1, so that's plus 4x times x will be x squared. And then 4x times negative 10 will make a negative, oops, we'll make that a 40 there, 40x. This next one, so what we need to do, and this is where, like, if you're just kind of blindly spelling FOIL, you get mixed up when there's three things. But what we're going to want to do on it is just distribute the 2x to everything, and then we're going to distribute that negative 1 to everything. So if I multiply two things by three things, I should end up with 6 things down here, 6 terms, and then we'll find our like terms and combine them. So it's really just kind of what we've been doing, it's just extended a little bit. So 2x times 3x squared will give us 6x cubed. 2x times negative 4x will give us a minus 8x squared. And then 2x times minus 3 will be minus 6x. So we've taken care of the 2x, and now we'll move to that negative 1, which is basically just going to give us this back, but with the opposite signs. So minus 3x squared, minus minus will make that plus 4x, minus minus will make that plus 3. And from here, it's kind of like the problems we did in the last section where we're just collecting our like terms. So 6x cubed, that's my only cube term, so we'll write that first. We'll keep things in descending order. So minus 8x squareds minus another 3x squareds will be minus 11x squareds. Minus 6x and plus 4x would put us at minus 2x, and then that 3 on the end is our only constant. And lastly, same idea, but now we got 3 things times 3 things, so when I multiply 3 things by 3 things, I will get 9 terms instead of the 6 that I got up here. And same basic plan, we're just going to do the 2x squared to everything in the parentheses, then we'll do the 4x to everything in the parentheses, and then we'll do the 8 to everything in the parentheses. So 2x squared times 4x squared is going to give us 8x to the 4th. 2x squared times 2x would give us plus 4, plus 4x cubed, and 2x squared times negative 2 will give us a minus 4x squared. And then we're just going to do the same exact thing, but now with the 4x. So 4x times 4x squared for 16x cubed. Let me scoot this over a little so I have more room. 4x times 2x will give us 8x squared. And then 4x times negative 2 will give us a negative 8x. And then lastly, we'll do the same thing but with 8. So 8 times 4, 32. X squared. 8 times 2 gives us 16x. And 8 times negative 2 will give us a minus 16. And each of these, since this is counting down x squared, x constant, when you go back and, if you're trying to find an error, check those powers, and it should be 4, 3, 2, 3, 2, 1, right? They're all counting down by ones, because that's what this one does, 2, 1, and then constant. So let's combine our like terms. Let me scoot this up a little bit. Oop, too far for that. So that's the only fourth, so we'll go 8x to the 4th. There's a cube, there's a cube. That is all my cubes, so I'll be at 20 x cubed. For squared terms, I got minus 4x squared plus 8x squared plus 32. So 8 and 32 would be 40, minus 4 should be 36. x squared. And then for linear terms, I got a couple right there. So minus 8 plus 16 will put us at plus 8x. And then lastly, we'd have that minus 16 on the end. So that is basically what there is to multiplying with polynomials.